Oh, nope. I'm not saying nothing.
Director's just
Welcome.
about to like have him say where he lives. Yeah, that's good.
Welcome to the
address.
Dresden Files. Welcome to the Dresden Files podcast. It's a podcast about the Dresden Files. That's pretty much what we got. We're going to talk about Cold Days again, because Cold Days is pretty fun. Get through another 5 to 6 chapters.
Right. We're part 6 out of 7 now, right? So
Maybe.
Part 3.
Do we have any news?
Out of 7.
In case we forget, we got to plug stuff. Hey, check the description and stuff for links to Drive Through RPG and other things.
Drive Through
That'll
RPG and our Patreon. And
yeah, they'll help.
You can get on our Discord if you go on our Patreon.
Yeah, with the closing
Want to
of
watch
Google
all of our
Hangouts.
discussions about scheduling and boring
Yeah.
things?
You get to see like unfiltered Broken Jars, Dresden Files podcast as it happens.
Brock uses it to furnish some of his theories, and we'd be like, "Oh yeah, we saw that crazy theory like 300 times, but here's what we think," So,
I mean, Brock is near to my heart. He pays for the privilege.
Yes.
I'll always answer Brock.
Brock is my favorite.
I mean, it helps. He's like the only, but
And do we have any?
Not wrong then, only can also be favorite.
right.
Do you have any news? Anything new?
We do not.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, the
We
Q&As
mentioned
from like a
Broken
month ago.
last time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there has not been any news since Peace Talks was done, and that was pretty much it. And when the comms came out,
2 or 3 months ago now. So
For those reading along at home, what chapter are we starting on?
Chapter 28.
Chapter 28.
Full
after
spoilers, just in case we have to
discussion.
say them.
With
Swearing.
Aaron.
right. We talked about Gary Boats according to my notes, and
That might have gotten, I don't know.
the
Your
entire
notes are out of order, but
they can't be. They're literally stream of consciousness as I'm listening to the thing.
yeah, except sometimes they have been out of order. And I'm pretty sure the discussion about boats happened after the discussion about Captain Hook. I think I just re-listened to it. And that is where we're starting off at, is that they leave Dresden's borrowed room and they immediately go into Captain Hook and who that person is.
And he's left on the baking tray, which is just...
Yes, the ceramic line baking tray in the oven. Yes.
He's going to start making a pie, yeah. I need to re-listen to that too.
It's a terrible way to treat the little folk, man. All right, anyway. It's funny because I can recite some of the lines verbatim, but like remembering where we are is right out.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they make sure that Toot Toot is alive and well and running around, and Molly has gotten pizzas. Let's see. And then they're going to like open the oven and make sure that Captain Hook doesn't go away. That's why Toot needs to be there to make sure we capture him again, because they know that it's going to run. And Harry is trying not to loom after he says, "You're my prisoner."
And it's pretty smart because like the first thing he does is make a break for it, right? Yeah. So it's like get the little folk to capture the little folk. So.
This is also where Harry fucks up.
Yes.
well, we need one of
Toot
those.
Toot is not happy.
Oh yeah, because he makes him a vassal.
Yeah.
We keep calling him because at this point in the book they still think it's a dude, but it's totally a her. So
Yes.
It's the Tooth Fairy.
That happens after Toot yells at Harry. It's like, "You open your big fat mouth."
right. Because then they ask her to like take off the helmet, right? And then they're like, "Holy shit, he's a chick,"
This is probably the most assertive we've ever seen Toot Toot be with Harry, by the way, ever. By like a lot.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but he's a good vassal, right? Like that's what I'd want out of a strong lieutenant is like, tell me when I'm being dumb. Maybe not in front of everybody, but still, So, yeah, I mean, so you're gonna have to fill it in because I started Screw Winter Law and then got some notes about Molly knowing Winter Law and how that's totally not going to become important by the end of the book.
Right. So. After Harry says "screw Winter Law" and then falls and realizes that he has a broken back once more if he decides to screw Winter Law, he's like, okay, how do I learn this? How do I know it? And it's like, you just don't learn it anywhere. You just know it.
Just know.
Just like he can speak Russian out of nowhere.
Right. Maybe he's too big or too human.
Yeah. Maybe you're just too big.
Or too insensitive, because that's what Mab tells Molly to do in Cold Case, is just study it, think about it, meditate on it, or whatever it was. Like she's just going to learn it out of nowhere.
She's also full Fae at that point, right?
No?
Isn't she?
Yeah, I mean, she's the Winter Lady, right?
Yeah, but she's still human.
No.
We don't know.
Yes.
As of Cold Case?
She can use a phone.
What is it? Theseus ship?
She doesn't use a phone in Cold Case.
Let's just operate under Theseus ship until we know otherwise. So she's got 7 years to be human until she gets replaced by only Fae parts, and only Fae Molly takes over.
Yeah. And Cold Case happened like the day after Cold Days, so
It wasn't that fast.
it was pretty.
It was a week.
fast.
It wasn't that long.
Yeah,
Human.
that's fair. But
Yeah, are you thinking the end of Skin Game?
I'm saying as soon as the mantle went in there, she's no longer human.
No,
That's
yeah,
right.
because you're talking about the stuff when they're talking about with Carlos, and she just kind of gets she gets the funnel through her head and read Winter Law basically, or just kind of instinctively know it.
Oh, well, using the phone, though, that happened at the end of Skin Game. That's
Yeah.
when Harry
Yes.
saw that, yeah.
That happened afterward. But she probably could have used I mean, the human, non-human aspect really is only a matter of whether or not her soul is still going to be intact by the end of this, because it's slowly eroding away. But using a phone, I have to imagine she could have done that instantly right after, because the reason her power set has the mantle. So the mantle is going to be the one that allows her to use the tech and sort of be Fae-like in that regard.
well, I mean, if we want to take it a little bit further, is it a source problem? You know, if she's channeling the mortal magic part, which she presumably still has access to like Harry does, then she fucks up technology. But if she's funneling it through Winter, then it doesn't follow the same rules.
I mean, I think it's probably intrinsically tied into her now. So
Yeah,
I don't think she can separate. She could still hex out anything the same way Mab could hex out anything if she really wanted to, but she's not going to just do it by being around it anymore.
So she's not human. Got it.
Well, her power set it's a little it's not as binary as she is or isn't. She's still human enough to
But Warner says she doesn't have free will anymore, right?
Right. She's got to follow the rules of the mantle.
Yeah,
From the second it went into
being
it.
mortal, being human, what's fundamental that in the Dresden Files is you have free will.
Well, and to split the hair just a little bit further, Molly still has free will, at least in Cold Case, right? Because she makes the choice to do the thing with Ramirez. It's the mantle taking over that stops her. So, there's still some of that in there, but
The part when she decides to tell him everything and then physically can't is a part where her choice is being curtailed, but
right.
she has
But her
the choice to
choice.
help him.
Yeah, but come on, it's what I'm splitting here is the difference between I've got free will until I'm in manacles. Just because I'm being physically restrained doesn't mean my will isn't there. She physically can't violate the laws of Winter because of the mantle, but that doesn't mean her will isn't there. Does that make sense?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
Aristotle-
I mean, it's the same with
yeah.
most of these people. They have what I tend to refer to as deterministic free will. They can do essentially whatever they want as long as it follows within their rules and their restrictions and their whatever. So she
but
could
Matt
decide
would-
to have a cheeseburger that day if she wants. But if the mantle all of a sudden said, for instance, said you could only eat chicken, she wouldn't be able to do that anymore. So it's a little she can do what she wants as long as she's not unable to do it.
I don't know. I mean, it just because somebody at Mab's level doesn't care, right? Mab isn't trying to get around the rules. It helps that she helps write a fair number of them. But she's never going to be oh yeah, well I should just start running around and making a bunch of little babies because she knows that's wrong, right? For as far as Winter Law is concerned and whatever, she knows she shouldn't do that. So there isn't oh, well, I would do this, but I'm totally restricted. I guess the difference being Lily, right? We still saw Lily would like to have helped Dresden, but she was literally incapable of doing so because of Titania's rule. Whereas Titania and Mab, I mean, again, they kind of make some of the rules, but at the same time, they are not gonna, they're not gonna thwart anything. You don't see them lipping off at Mother Winter and Mother Summer. They are in line. So that's where I'm saying the ladies still seem to have at least some free will from what we've seen. Aurora, it's hard to tell because she was infected. Maeve is hard to tell again, once you get infected, it's different. Because again, like Leah is the same way, right? Leah ran around making her own decisions, but mostly when she was infected. Otherwise, she was being a fairy. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. There was never a point where Leah's like, oh man, I totally help you, but I can't because, of XYZ. Like, unless she was just powerless to do so.
Right. So Leah is free to do what she wants. How she comes to a decision of what she wants and what she should do is something that maybe could be discussed, but she wants to help Harry. She gets into a position that makes it possible. She has to stick to the restrictions of the balance must be kept. It has to be a bargain for her, or it goes back to the bargain with Margaret, but she can make the choice to help him beyond that. And she has.
So trying to get like an analogy, let's use the gift, the tit for tat fairy thing, right? Mm-hmm. I think the difference is Molly would totally help Harry. She would give him some boon of power or whatever, right? But she would be restricted in doing so because she's like, you got to give me something back, because that's how fairies work. Right. If you tried to do the same thing with Leah and you'd be like, hey, give me your boomstick, give me the thing that's the source of your power, she'd be like, why would I do that, child? Like, it wouldn't even occur to her to thwart the natural order of things. Whereas Molly is still human enough where she would be like, I totally would, but I can't because manacles. Whereas Leah is like, what manacles?
Part of that is also her pay grade. Leah operates essentially just shy of the Mab pay grade, the way her responsibility, the way her power level works. So, and the more power you have, the less you can do.
That's definitely a principle of storytelling in Dresden Files, but I think there's definitely an occasion of still exercising free will within the rules. Not because the rules tend to be written with a lot of loopholes, and Mab does that so that she can do pretty much what she wants to and what she needs to, and control everyone else who's subject to them or otherwise can't disobey or isn't clever enough. But you also see things like if you're talking about avoiding free will, you have the negligence of duties of Maeve, right? We find out in Cold Case, Maeve has not been doing her job this whole time, and apparently she's been free to do that without known consequences, even though it is a normal obligation of the Winter Lady.
That was consequences.
Well, and that's what's hard to reconcile. Like,
for her, though, personally, for her, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Amount of power, she wasn't doing the things of getting the vassals taken care of, or getting the power from them that they needed to protect the gates. Her own personal ability for using power probably was diminished because she wanted to party instead. And like you see in Summer Night, when she was incapable of controlling Slate without spillover, it's probably affecting her in that way, but she doesn't care.
And Mab does specifically say that she indulges her. So Mab indulges Maeve, which suggests that there's also a personal dynamic involved too. So I don't think that we have to write off Molly as deterministically, absolutely losing free will and losing her soul. Right. It very well could be that she's just...
she could still have her soul, I think.
She games the system, right? She could game the system. She could actively resist following the rules. She could use personal contact with Mab to try to get to do what she wants and to have the rules change for her. So there's a lot of or just abstain from action, and that thereby resist the whole system. So there's a lot of options for her to retain her free will and remain human, I'd say. Even within the principles here.
I don't think we can say have free will or something. It's a very hard gray area, but I would say by the fact that she could use that cell phone, the implication is just really heavily that she's not actually mortal anymore.
Oh, sure. So she might have given in. But I think the principle you hear from Uriel is that they can't make you do anything that they can't force you to do anything that you don't want to do. So I think that it may be that Molly has given up, but I would suggest that it's most consistent with the Dresden Files and common sense that free will is only ever lost when it's given up completely. And that seems to be a potential storytelling conceit of the series.
Harry's got a different out, though. His mantle allows him to stay mortal.
Sure.
Yeah, he is he's the part that gets to say no.
I mean, if Molly gets her head cut off, she's coming back eventually, as long as it's not on Halloween. Harry does, she's changed one way or the other.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, a lot of it has to do with like how reversible it is, determines if she's still quote unquote human, right?
Does get the loopholes, like he was saying. Like Leah being giving Harry what he already had of like the answers all around you, like what she said in Grave Peril because of the running water.
Right.
Like he didn't actually give him anything except for just highlighting something, but that was the bargain, and that gives her the loophole to be able to act as effectively as she wants. Molly, I think, has the ability to kind of change her perspective and change which kind of bargain she gets to act on. Like what she does for Maggie, she may not be required to, but she feels like it's an obligation, so she does. Like what obligation does she actually have to Maggie? It's not her kid, it's not her sibling, but she just cares about Maggie as a part for caring about Harry.
Yeah,
I guess you could make the trickle down argument since Harry's technically
she could
now, but
I mean,
wouldn't have to.
A little bit. Like she gets to use those arguments to be able to do what she wants to protect Maggie and her family.
Sure. Well, even Mab gave her a gift on Christmas, so there's some general, she calls it an obligation.
Maggie's being groomed already.
Well, sure. Why wouldn't she be?
Well, I don't know. I feel like this is okay. There's limits to how much Jim is gonna want to tell us about this. I think, but a good question for him would be is Molly still immortal, or does she still have free will?
Well, he sort of answered that once because somebody asked him if she still has a soul, and he said that it's not as simple. Like it's not instant, but it's inevitable. So it's like eroding away as time goes on.
So is Mab soulless at this point? Is she just?
I think he addressed it so far as he's unqualified to say whether, to answer that question insofar as a metaphysical sense, but is for all intents and purposes, she doesn't.
What's that moment though? That one moment there on in Cold in this book, right? Later.
Mm-hmm.
That was very human.
Right. She's still got some feelings. So, I mean, we probably should write this down as a topic here in short order, but, and just get back on. But yeah, I mean, because there definitely seems to be a dichotomy between now, because we also got to remember, right? The Fae are not human, but they're the most mortal of the Never critters. So I'm sure that plays into it, right? You basically have a dichotomy between the supernatural Fae side of things and the more mortal side of things. And, that plays into it, like many of the Fae, especially the high Fae, have ties to the mortal world directly. Like, Mab used to be mortal. Some of them are kidnapped mortals who, decide to convert through whatever mechanism we haven't seen in the Dresden Files. But I mean, the whole changeling thing, there's the scions, obviously, in this case for changelings. But I mean, in a traditional sense, like that used to be the thing. And in some lore, it is that, you get kidnapped and replaced with a fairy baby, or just kidnapped and turned into a fairy somehow, So I'm sure that plays into it, but obviously Toot Toot is something else, right? He started as a Fae, and who knows how old he is, and all that. But I don't know, could be a fun topic. So
yeah, I think so. Could be. I agree.
Okay.
So we baked Luna into a cake. No, wait. Or sorry, Lacuna. So, but I mean, he basically finds out what her name is, and finds out that she's a girl, and
she hates candy.
Right? Yeah. Like, do you know what today is? Children and candy. So, and then when they offer to get her refreshments, she wants celery and cheese and green tea. So she's veggie but not vegan. Is that the hair we're splitting? But anyway,
I don't know if she cares, but I mean, it wasn't the popular theory that she's some kind of tooth fairy. And
right.
I remember a dentist telling me that cheese is good for teeth, or at least it's not bad for them. So
and lacuna is what it is. It's what you call the thing in the hole in the teeth or whatever.
Yeah, it's a gap in the teeth, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, she's definitely against unhealthy things.
Yeah.
Like
she may not be the tooth fairy, but she is at least a tooth fairy.
I think Jim, when asked, as I recall in the word of Jim, it was something like, what is lacuna? And he says, it's the name. I can't make it more obvious, or something like that. So I think it's pretty clear. That's the joke. Tooth fairy.
And Toot tries to woo her with a Jolly Rancher, and gets a nosebleed instead.
Yep.
Right.
Punches him in the face.
Like an anime protagonist.
Right.
Somewhere in the middle of all this, I think actually before they revealed Lacuna, there was a discussion about general exposition of what's going on in the story, and Butters has like, oh, it's a Phantom Menace, and that explains everything to most people.
Right.
And Molly had a map, and Harry and then Molly was filling out all of where the nodes and the ley lines crossed, because that's obviously where things are going to happen. And he starts doling out assignments to people of, you go get the vampire people to destroy that site, Vikings go do other things and shit like that.
Right.
Like the little tidbit with where she's like, no, there and Leah taught me, and he's like, why am I doing this?
Right. Yeah, and so basically, I mean, to clarify that a little bit more, there's been some little bit of drops. You know, we mentioned it last episode, I believe, where Lara has a quick reaction force that's been used to defend the I can't remember the group, the Paranet. And so Thomas is going to talk to her to get her commando team basically to take out one site. Murphy goes to talk to Marcone, or was it Butters? Anyway, one of them goes to talk to the Better Future Society to get the Einherjarn to go attack one of the other sites. And then Team Scooby gets to go take out the third site, theoretically, or they go to the island.
Yeah. And Harry's letting everyone think that it's the Black Council that's doing everything, even though he thinks that it's not the Black Council because it's outsiders. But everyone's assuming that Black Council and outsiders are the same thing.
Well, so outsiders can only get in by being summoned by a mortal wizard, right? And so that's the whole thing with like the Battle of Sicily, is that outsiders were used by the Red Court to attack the White Council, but that they literally can't because of the laws of magic. So that meant that they had either turned people or there were collaborators, and that's why that was one of the early parts of the holy shit Battle of Sicily before the like killed everybody in their beds part, which was also holy shit. But fighting outsiders in the Never Never, and having, was it Ebenezer and Merlin, or was it Rashid and Merlin?
No,
Rashid and Merlin. They lifted a ward. They
I thought it was Ebenezer.
Stopped the whole court, you know. So yeah,
it was the gatekeeper and the Merlin.
Right. Yeah,
makes sense with the gatekeeper. Actually, we know the Merlin's really good at defensive magic, but it also makes sense to gatekeeper
and wards.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's where that ties in, and where, like, in my assumption, everywhere that the outsiders are operating, there has to be Black Council. Now, how Sharkface fits into it, it almost seems like he's his own thing, and that's why he's Harbinger. Is that, you know, he's either been on the inside or can get on the inside his own self somehow. I don't know if that lets him raise all these other outsiders, because it's never really talked about.
I think that the walkers might be able to get in on their own.
I don't know. He walks behind needed to be summoned both times that we've seen him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
I can't imagine he walks before.
One of them, we don't know if he was summoned or if he was just running around.
Well, we don't know about before, but it stands to reason if you're at that level pay grade, I don't think you can just slip in and out.
And with Nemesis, he cheats because he can slip in and out, but he has to be in a host theoretically, and it's only a part of him, you know.
Yeah. And the Battle of Sicily and all of the outsiders being summoned, all that happened at the same time as Cal and Kamari trying to do the Dark Hallow, so it does seem like they are collaborating in very much coordination. And Cal and Kamari seem to be the vector of Leah getting infected, so it's really easy to assume that they're the same people. So why doesn't Harry think they're connected?
Like in this book? Or
why is he thinking that, when everyone's thinking that, oh, it's the Black Council, and he says, well, except it's the outsiders and it's not the Black Council? That seems to be the reason he makes.
Harry's dumb. I don't know. Or Butcher's
because he knows they can't always appear in every book.
Right. Right. I mean, but here's the other thing too, though, right? Like, we're skipping ahead just a little bit, but it's important to this conversation. The barges all have practitioners on them. So they had to have people who were strong enough to do the summoning magic or the ritual magic anyway, whatever the magic bomb was. To me, it's not outside the possibility that they were able to summon an outsider, because what was it? Madge, right? What, from Blood Rights or whatever? Like, she was able to do the summoning by herself, even though she would have preferred to have had assistance. but like she didn't seem like that big bad of a magic user. Like Harry's gone against a lot tougher. So apparently the threshold for entry isn't that
like medium level. I think it's implied.
Right.
That she's like medium level.
Well, if you're just summoning something, you don't really need a ton of
a ritual.
As long as especially if you're just going to set it off. It's when you want to set your will against it, like Harry with the Earl King and stuff like that, or when Madge inevitably lost control and died. It's
right. What I'm establishing is that if the group of them are big enough to do the magic bomb to bring down Demon Reach, they're almost certainly capable of summoning all of those outsiders. So yes, and to me, like honestly, the practitioners are almost forgettable, other than a couple of times they get shot at while they're trying to take down the boats, right? He never addresses where the fuck those guys came from, what their level of magic is, anything like that. They're just people running around above decks, and they're unimportant to the story somehow. But it's like, no, man, that's probably a clue, So,
it's possible the Walker's the one that they're getting their fuel from. So if they're, like for instance, if we think Lord Wraith and his magic protection comes from the Outsider, for instance, and that's why he can't touch with magic. So same general principle. You got a Walker running around that could be your mana battery, and you're just getting that power and you're charging it up the whole while, and that accounts for even people mid-level who are going to blow up Merlin's island.
Yeah, I mean, they may not be big powerhouses on their own, but they are still a group of people who are trying to summon and work with an outsider that's going to destroy reality. Those group of people has got to be a worrisome thing to figure out.
Plus, what they were doing, as I remember the spell correctly, is they're messing with the resonance of the spells already in place. So they're not like throwing a big nuke at a shield. They're kind of disrupting the power that's already there and sort of using itself to blow itself up.
Could be.
Which also doesn't necessarily require a ton of power. That just requires focus and finesse.
Right. Put a wrench between the transformers and blow them up.
I think a good question to ask is, do we think the Black Council, the Circle, as I think Kyle calls it, are they all aware they're working for the Outsiders, or only some aware? Are they
not necessarily?
Are they all Nemesis infected? Which I don't think they are.
I don't think.
So yeah, Cal doesn't seem to think so, right? Because we've had a couple of comments from him. He seems very in control of his faculties. Cal, however, does summon outsiders, or at least something very near to them in White Knight. So yeah, like I do believe he knows that he's
the primordial ghouls.
Yeah, like they were something else, like Harry said that they were from the deeper, darker, a different age, and the deeper, darker never. It's kind of like what D&D calls the far realms. Like they're like, we don't know where they come from. They just come from, like, presumably everything comes from the never. It just came from like way over there, and nobody's ever been there. And that's kind of how Harry's dealt with it the entire time, right? He's only just starting to get the idea that outsider term. Like, sure, we called them outsiders, but they're just powerful demons, is how he describes them earlier in the series. I think once he's seen the gates, he gets, oh no, they're not from the never. They're from like out.
He does say before that there is a difference between demons and outsiders, that outsiders are outside, but he doesn't, I don't think he really gets it until he sees it.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, his understanding is evolved because the very first mention of outsiders, I think someone plays the whole, like, what's that card? And he's like, oh, they're just powerful demons. And I don't know if that's a flippant, description because, that's the easiest way to describe them, or if that's literally his understanding. Because it's kind of the same thing as, like, when he sees the gates, right? And the whole, like, seventh law of magic is thou shalt not seek beyond the outer gates. And he's like, they're not supposed to be real, man. Like, it's a metaphor, isn't it? Like, it's not a real thing. Hey,
no, there are actual gates. They're right there. You can see them.
Yeah.
Aside even from all that, I mean, Vittorio brings an outsider into himself, and he was Cal's acolyte.
Yeah.
Right. True. Yeah, and to be fair, like, the gates are still metaphorical. That's just how Harry understands them, probably a combination of Harry's brain and gates. They say don't seek beyond the outer gates, but... yeah. Anyway,
I hate it when stories do that. That I hate. I just want it to be more like, okay, this is actually what it is, not like this is how you're interpreting it. What's everyone else seeing? What's Rashid seeing then? Like, he seems to be seeing the same thing. There are people in the walls. Are the walls not there?
I mean, it could be that many mortals interpret it the same way, and that's why it's literally written in the laws as "Don't seek beyond the outer gates." But I'm sure the Fae see something else. You know, I find it hard to believe that, like, in a metaphysical sense, somehow they're not literally defending from all sides reality, right? Like, you could think of our part of reality as a microcosm of like a universe, and they're somehow coming into something that doesn't have a barrier. So for the sake of argument, it's like an egg of some kind, right? Why would they attack this one spot? Like, why is it this one spot that they're able to get in? You know, there's,
well, to be fair,
like
Cold Days kind of establishes they don't. They do focus on the mortal world and releasing the prisoners, and they going about destroying the world in a different way.
Sure, but I mean, but the gates, right? Like the gates implies it's that door right there versus.
Well, yeah, it's probably more of a doorway that would essentially allow your outsiders to come in without the need of mortal magic.
There's probably something very specific they wanted on the island, not just general mayhem.
Maybe.
It might have been enough.
Well, there's probably outsiders in the island.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But there's like you know, like how the sleeper, right? Is he's not in the island, but he's trapped under the sea, like the cold case story. That's a sleeper, right?
He's in the glacier.
There could be something like at that level of power there, like one of the outsider gods, kinda.
Well, there's Titans down there. I believe it's been subtly hinted at a minimum.
Gotcha. I think we haven't even made it out of our chapter in 30 minutes.
We are probably through chapter 29.
There is so much lore stuff in this book that you can discuss.
I think
an outsider episode. So
I'd like to do an outsider episode, but I'd also like to do one on perception and reality, because I think there's something that comes up a lot with, especially in the Never Never and soul gazing and that sort of thing,
and the
sight. Yeah.
Okay.
We can do that. It's probably my least favorite part about the books.
You can include the the paladin sense or whatever you want to call it with Sonya and Michael, right?
Hey, we got an hour right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. In the future, at some unspecified date, we will do that as an episode. For now, chapter 30 of Cold Days, which is when he goes to the Montrose Point Bird Sanctuary.
For arguably the cringiest discussion.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
But whatever, the main crux of it is he goes to summon Titania because he's full of good ideas, this book.
Why do you think it's so cringy?
Why do I think it's so cringy to shoehorn in what Harry thinks about gay guys?
Oh, that part. Yeah.
Yeah, the discussion to Titania, that part makes sense, especially when he follows it up with talking to the mothers, but it's just the medium of talking about gay guys. It does seem really weird. I don't think it's aging well.
It does feel a little shoehorned, but I think it's like, especially around that time, it was very coming up in books, like to be more inclusive and have more diversity. And I think
but that didn't work in this either. You want to be.
I'm not saying it worked. I'm just saying why it probably happened. I also think Jim gets accused of kind of unjustly. I think being accused of being a like chauvinist kind of man because he's writing noir books, or they have like
that's
in that.
Well,
so maybe he was trying to show like, you know, I'm down with it.
Yeah, but this didn't really do anything.
From interviews and when this kind of thing comes up, I don't see Jim as caving to any kind of popular pressure. I think he writes the books that he wants to write and he writes them the way he wants to write them, and there's an audience, and he's happy about that. I don't know that he'd. I don't think he was pandering. I don't think he was pandering. I think it was just.
Why was it? It felt very like awkward.
Yeah, it does feel like it's shoehorned in. Like it doesn't. It never ever gets context anywhere else other than Titania's mad at him, and she's wondering how he makes judgments. But there could have been so many other ways of having that type of conversation.
Yeah, but I kind of see what he was going with it. It's, you know, illicit union or illicit meeting or whatever. Yeah, but it's kind of threadbare. It doesn't quite work.
I don't know. I mean, I don't really care. I wasn't put off by it. It just felt like it just felt like out of tone of the scene. if you can say it like that.
Which is a shame, because the rest of the scene does quite a lot, quite well, with the idea of moving from some kind of calm, barely restrained, polite conversation to this furious wrath directed directly at him, where he's beyond being reasoned with to that extent. I thought that was quite effective. You killed my daughter.
How about the fact that Eldest Gruff is totally a bro?
Yeah.
Eldest Gruff put in a good word for him with freaking Titania. And we're like, maybe you should squish his head like this, like, yeah, I just, that was one of my big things is like
buying him a beer.
I mean, yeah, it's just totally indicative of the whole interaction in Turncoat, right? Or Small Favor, where it is Small Favor. So where he's like, look, I don't want to have to kill you, but the lady kind of told me I got to, and that's my job, is to do what she wants. And the whole donut thing, and like, yeah, well, she already made a promise to you first, so I guess that wins. Whereas like, yeah, Eldest Gruff really likes this guy. Like Earl King and Santa Claus and Eldest Gruff, like they're bros for a reason, and you see them all hanging out. So I'm sure they're sharing notes and just being like, keep an eye on this guy, and Eldest Gruff's like, hey, Titania, like maybe can you not squish him for like another decade or two, just in case. Maybe he'll grow on you. I don't know.
I mean, it kind of feels like Vadarong / Santa, Eldest Gruff, and the Earl King is kind of like a faction onto themselves, like they're working together somehow. Because otherwise, why is the Earl King just letting it slide? Like he's rooting for the guy. I mean, he promised he would hunt him down one day.
What if they're all associated with the Grey Council?
Well, I mean,
one of them is.
Yeah, one of them is. Yeah. But for me, the Earl King, the other part of it is like the Earl King hasn't had one pulled over on him since Tam Lin probably. So it's just like, you sly motherfucker. I'm going to get you one of these days, but I'm going to give you props at the same time. So,
yeah, but like when Harry just bumbles into the Earl King's place of power, and the Earl King is still like, yeah, I'm letting it go. I mean, whatever. It's just not very
well, because the prey right came right to his doorstep. That's not a good hunt.
Yeah, well, and not just that, Harry, but he beat him with words. He's a fairy. That shit kind of matters,
Harry was able to maneuver it correctly, and he won in the contest.
I think Earl Bro is on Harry's side. That's just where I'm getting.
Well, yeah, but I don't think right now, if Harry stumbles into the Never, especially now that he's the knight anyway. But even if he never was the knight and all that happened, I don't think the Earl Kings are just gonna like start chasing him down in the Never like Leah and he used to, just out of hand.
Well, and we see that in this book, though, right? Like, it seems like bygones are bygones now. But if you want to take the whole thing in changes, like the Earl King, it's not just the Earl King and what he told Harry directly, right? The Earl King's got to look at what he's showing his subjects. He's in with a bunch of fucking psychopathic murdering goblins. So if they see him not follow the rules and tradition, or if they see some weakness, they're gonna, make a move for it. You can't tell me that there isn't like a Leah goblin out there who's like the Earl King's #1 dude. And he's right. Yeah, right. He's gonna make sure he has a hunting accident later. So
I'm still pretty sure one of the two goblins that were named is the one who gave the wolf belts to what's their names. But,
really?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, because where are you drawing that conclusion?
Because
honestly, because they got named. And then to me that
I just want to mark this on the calendar officially. This is the craziest shit I've ever heard EG say. So like this is up there with like time traveling.
I mean, I can deal with the whole hunter spirits thing, and like that seems like the primal thing that would be his bag.
Sure.
Now, I'm pretty sure he didn't give him out directly.
Uh-huh.
So, you get two named goblins. One of them's on his good side. One of them's on his bad side. So I could see rationale for either one of them doing it.
So are you saying one of these goblins is part of the Black Council?
Sure. Why not?
Well, and yeah, I mean, I think the Black Council is still different from the thing that's actually going on, right? I think the Black Council are being played as much as everybody else.
They might be like serving under Nemesis, right? Like even if they don't know.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's like most organizations like this. It's like most of them, yes, they're all in general going toward the same goal. Now they all have different sub goals they all want. They all want different things. Some of them definitely think that they're actually the ones using the outsiders. Some of them probably don't care one way or another if reality comes to an end.
Right.
It's all muddled, but in general, yes, Nemesis, the outsiders are the big
One
player.
would think people of like even Never Never, anything from this reality, including the Never Never, would be like, I want that to keep going.
Well, that's
Well,
why most of them, even
that's-
Nicodemus, seems to be against them. It's just his methods are also kill all humans because they can bring those.
His methods are not very good.
Nicodemus is more like, if we burn down the forest, it can't burn us, type, like get rid of the kindling,
And that's why most people. That's why Nemesis is an infiltrator. It's trying to take down these organizations from the inside. The only real major power that seemed, and that seemed to be because their leader was directing it, is the Red Court. That was like full on. Yeah, we're gonna head up with these dudes, and obviously the Fomor, but they're just cast offs from everybody anyway. So what else are they gonna do?
I feel like even the Fomor and the Black Council probably don't know the full breadth of what's going on, right? It's one of those, like, if you help me, we'll rule the galaxy together. And then it's like, oh my God, your sudden but inevitable betrayal. And it's like,
Oh, curse you.
I fully expect, again, I trust in Jin to present it in a unique kind of way to subvert the trope somehow. But until proven otherwise, that's what I'm operating under. It's like, yes, Cowell is willingly working with the outsiders, but Cowell probably thinks he's in control, that somehow he's going to wind up on top, whereas the outsiders are like, no, you fool.
At least we'll be able to see it coming and circumvent it.
Right. Yeah, right. Like, no, it's only never worked before because somebody else was doing it, but now I'm in control. Like, that's a classic human hubris anyway, where it's like, oh yes, it's failed 3,000 times, but it wasn't me doing it,
Well, whether his rationale was actually his true motivation or not, this is a dude who's arrogant enough to think he can stop death. So I have no problem believing that he thinks he's in control of all.
So side question with Cowell, or Komori for that matter,
who don't show up in this book.
Right.
The only other the only other people who know how to do the Dark Hollow, why have they not done one?
Because they're dead. Who?
Yeah.
Who else knows?
Cowell is alive.
Yes.
Why hasn't he done another one?
Well, look what happened. I mean, you got several reasons for that.
Or
One,
Komori.
it took apparently years of preparation.
Right.
Like, they
It's
didn't
been
just head up
years.
that night.
Mhm.
Right.
It takes years
Also,
of preparation, which will get you noticed. And then he had someone who he thought so little of, perspective-wise, basically nearly kill him and potentially turn him into some weird wraith version of himself anyway. So he's already gotten 7 ways of fucked up by someone inferior.
I think there's I just hope there will be an actual in-book reason why he never tried the Dark Hollow again.
It could be he was just trying to make sure that Gravane or Corpse Taker didn't become that powerful. If it was going to happen, he was going to take it, but maybe he doesn't need it.
That's possible. Plus, it's the same reason why Nicodemus doesn't use that Barabbas entropy curse every year on Harry, because eventually that would get lame.
You're like, oh, it's that time
doing
again.
the same thing.
Why does he keep doing it on April 1st? It's such an obvious time to do it.
Storytelling wise, sure. I understand, Jacob. I'm just saying, if it's never explained in the books, it's going to annoy me now that I thought about it.
Well, I mean, look, years of prep, got screwed over by someone weaker than you, drawing attention from all the supernatural powers, and you're probably not operating at full mortality anymore.
If people have tabs on him now to make sure he doesn't do it again.
So.
Except most of them think that he's dead.
Oh, well.
And he was able to pull shenanigans directly at the White Council since then.
Well, but the White Council is also sort of the White Council is the easiest person to pull shenanigans against because they willingly stick their heads in the sand about this stuff.
Right.
It was Cowell who
There's
set
no
the
Black Council.
rules, right? For sure, right? At the camp of the newbies.
Why are you going based off that thread that was just brought up?
I don't know what thread you're talking about.
Yeah,
I'm just talking.
Posted that in the sub that like Cowell's the reason the ghouls were there at Camp Kaboom or whatever.
I feel like it was made fairly obvious with there was the same smell. They went to the same place in the Never Never.
I mean, it's possible. It's fine if it is. It's just it doesn't. I mean, okay. So we send ghouls after them. I mean, what did they accomplish? They killed 2 friggin' teenagers.
Well, it seems like they were there to spy, and then like it seemed like
But
they
I
were there
mean,
to spy. And then got
Even
caught.
if we accept that, it's not like they didn't. I mean, Peabody still had Lucio under his thrall then, so he could have just as easily done it, or had her do it.
Right.
Without.
And I mean, it whatever. It doesn't have to be Cowell or not Cowell or Peabody or not Peabody. You know, obviously they've got other people. So
Yeah, it could have been the Red Court. I mean, they work with ghouls.
There's-
They have mortal practitioners. So if the Red Court who works with ghouls and has those people, they could have just as easily done it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, for and it's nice to think under every stone there's a conspiracy, but considering the event at hand, it's not really an important one. That I mean,
Right.
I have more instance in the Rakshasa that comes up 3 times that we never hear about than I do about Camp Kaboom.
Yeah, but the Rakshasa is probably going to be like the incursion, right? It's just one of those background things to show you that they're doing other things in the world, but it's not going to be unless they suddenly show up in maybe they'll show up in the next book because everything
happens to be stuff.
there. But
in general, that seems
for Fomor, you know. So
the main point is that seems more interesting as background info than who sent the ghouls at Camp Kaboom. It's like, who cares? It's one of the bad guys. They're going to get killed at some point.
speaking of which, chapter 31. Can we get 3 whole chapters into this episode?
We're still in chapter 30.
Yeah, but let's just skip it because nobody's gay and no.
Yeah,
I'm
but-
just kidding, so.
Okay.
Well, all right, we got the conversation. He gets the name of.
You don't know that.
That's the main crux of the chapter.
Okay,
He talks to
okay.
Titania. He doesn't get roasted, and he
Yeah,
gets the
right.
name of Nemesis.
Right.
And that is
Then he
all she
goes
will do
to
to help. And
And he
then
thinks of another good idea.
it was a great idea.
Yeah,
worked
it
out
was
great.
super.
Then he
So I
goes-
just by the skin of my teeth got by Titania. Let me now summon Mother Winter.
Oh, right.
Let me go to the next level.
In his grave, by the way. So
Yes.
it works.
yeah,
That's
and he
hardcore,
totally, yeah, he totally gets like big
Some name.
fist pulled through the ground, like into the muck, like
I fucking love the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Dude,
Like,
that's
I wa-
totally hardcore down there.
right.
Well, that's like chapter 35, and we're not getting it.
Yeah, right. That's when he comes back out. You know, like
Okay, we have like 12, maybe 15 minutes if we stay at an hour, which we probably should, to get through how much? Maybe a chapter?
right.
I mean, we can skip by the
Yes,
initial
Director.
meeting with Mother Winter. He goes, he summons Mother Winter. She pulls him to the cottage,
Right.
and she
Yeah, he summoned her. She grabbed his ass. So
Yeah.
you don't summon me, bitch.
and she starts throwing cutlery at him.
And then
yes.
there's
the
a
dark.
discussion about names.
Yes.
Right
Yes.
here and a little bit later.
He knew some names, and not all of them were entirely stupid or entirely wrong or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
And
Atropos
did
and
he?
Skull.
And then no,
Either
not that
choosing
one.
them or wholly wrong in using them.
Right.
She's gone by those names by Atropos and Skull before, who are essentially the Greek and Norse versions of the Fates.
Yes,
Right.
she is what comes.
All right, Ben, let it out, man.
Oh,
You're
but there's
explode.
the line that's the unsaid thing is, it seems to be, did he guess that other one? Is it no? But
Right.
there's some other name he did not say.
That would be
Oh,
the
man.
true name.
What
Yeah.
is that name?
The name
I
of
thought you were
both
gonna-
Mother
It's the,
Winter
it's the
and
next
Sun.
book name. It's
Exactly.
the one they share.
It's all okay.
What's
Fair
the sisters from the Zelda Ocarina of Time, right? Where they're 2 witches, but then they merge into 1 witch when you fight them. So
Never
that's
played
the name. So just kidding. Maybe.
Sheik. I don't know.
No, you guys are god fucking terrible.
I
Like,
never played a Zelda
you
game,
guys-
okay?
You guys, oh my god, you guys don't even know what I'm referencing, let
I
alone.
know it's Zelda.
I get that. I know
remember the
Ocarina of
names,
Time's
so-
supposed to be like one of the greatest games ever, but
We don't
Oh,
got
no,
time
that's-
for this. Keep going.
Breath of the Wild is the greatest game ever. Okay, so next thing. So what is that name? Topic
The
for later.
best idea I've seen was Gaia, because I can't really refute it.
I mean, what's wrong with Hecate? I mean, it comes up in the next book.
Yeah. Never mind the name from
It's the
Zelda.
name they all share.
But it,
That's a bit trivial of a leap from
yeah,
Atropos, right?
yeah.
But Gaia really only fits with Summer. What the hell does Mother Winter care about that?
Well, because life and death, they're both. And
Death is
Yeah,
part,
it-
part of
all
part
it.
of the cycle.
Yeah.
Joy
the
and
real-
sorrow. You ever see Inside Out? It's all in
The
there.
real
It's all
question
worked
you've got is if you go the Gaia route in a lot of mythologies, it's Mother Earth and Father Sky. So who the fuck's Father Sky now? And we got more questions. And good job, guys. Like we didn't solve anything. We just got more questions. So, but Yeah,
Kronos, Kronos. Who knows? Primordial gods.
Or maybe he didn't make it, like Oberon.
This whole interaction with the mothers is very, very illuminating.
Yeah, it's
Oh
great.
yeah. Well, because this is where Wormwood happens too, right? So
Well, almost.
Yeah,
not
that
yet.
one's not
Not
ready.
ready for it.
yeah.
But
Like, what do you mean not yet? Wait a minute. Let's roll the tape on that one.
By the name of these other ones, I feel like I should be concerned about this one.
Right.
Oh,
It's biblical, isn't it?
Wormwood is, what's that last book in the Bible where everything dies? Revelations.
Apocalypse.
Yeah. That's that the star is Wormwood, and then all the waters were poisoned, and yada yada, and the world's coming to an end.
Right. So, it's probably not going to happen before the end of the books or anything.
Yeah, and it's only on a shelf with a butt ton of other plagues.
Right.
So, but yeah, he ends up having a talk with Mother Winter and Mother Summer about
very narrowly avoids becoming stew.
Yeah, and I fully accept that Mother Winter was sincere in her appreciation that you would either find out or you'd be a meal. I don't care either way.
Yeah, if he couldn't survive, then he wasn't worth it.
Nope, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they have a little petty back and forth where she's like turning soot into things, and
it's like, Mother Summer cleans the window, and he's just like, no, it must be dark. And
she like kills a plant and turns it into ash. Just petty, sitting there and bickering.
And sitting because she doesn't have a walking stick anymore.
Yeah, well, somebody's using it.
Who's using it?
Yeah, and Harry hurt her. That was one of the things that Mother Summer kind of like drops to, is like, you hurt her because she doesn't get around much because the whole walking stick thing. So.
Yes, and so she had to pay him back for that pain, which was, you end up in stew or you're good enough to get out.
Right, which really is just kind of a wintry thing to do anyway. So it's totally badass. So
wait, so he hurt her by trying to summon her, or something else? Oh,
yeah,
I see. Okay.
That's why
essentially making her move.
Right.
More or less.
She couldn't go to him. She couldn't be
That's why
summoned.
she doesn't take him on the walk to the gates, because she can't get around the same way she used to.
And
the Winter's also the only original of this. All the
Yes, she is the only original left.
Bringing it full circle. What? Notice that there's Winter Lawn, he's a Winter Knight, there's the Winter Mother, and the only way out, other than dying and doing whatever he has to because Mother Winter says so, is using free will. So free will gets you out of Winter Law.
He tried
we know
against Winter Law, and he could, but he was severely punished. I guess
we know free will gets you out because Tam Lin, but
I mean, it wasn't necessarily his free will, but you can be bargained.
Again, he's immortal. He's a knight, so he has free will.
Right.
Yeah. Harry still has free will. I mean, he's
sure.
He's more restricted.
I'm just trying to tease out not necessarily the principles of Harry. Maybe it's a principle of Winter Law or fairies' interactions with humans, that there has to be some out for free will, just like with everything else. That seems to be constant with Uriel and what we were talking about earlier. Anyway,
free will's overrated, man.
Do the mothers have to bargain with each other to be able to help each other, or is there not such a thing for them at their station? So, like, Mother Summer is doing what Winter wants, taking him to see the gate so he can learn what he needs to. And Summer agrees, but does she owe anything to Winter either way?
I think that transcends the interactions that we see, right? Like, even Mab makes bargains, whereas like Mother Summer and Winter, they just know, right? Because like think about the unraveling as well. They had already done that, and that was sort of a gift, right? But it was within their power to do so. So they just do it, like there is no negotiation, no banter, no, okay, well, I've got to clean the window because you dirtied it so that you can dirty it again or whatever. It's just how they exist. I don't know. I don't know another way to describe it.
Yeah,
but
it transcends the idea of debt and bargains.
Yeah, they are so restricted in what they can do that they essentially don't have to be restricted with each other.
I see it more as a issue of personal understanding. They each get each other and understand that I can only do anything for 3 to 6 months out of the year, and you can only do anything for 3 to 6 months out of the year or whatever. But then there's also with behind the bickering a real understanding and a real maybe even a friendship between. That's at the point where Winter and Summer meet, and they're no longer really rivals, but co-principals of some aspect of creation or some.
Well, you see that at the gates later when the Winter soldiers bow to Mother Summer, and she
exactly.
Blessing. I mean, nobody at this level, nobody cares. Essentially, Summer medics are there helping Winter soldiers, and it's because that all that matters is we are part of reality here.
Yeah, go Team Reality. Yep.
So that's, I mean,
go Team Reality.
Yeah, I don't think they care at that. It's and they're also not part of the active court. This is also all of this is essentially happening outside the active court. Everything that they do with the bargaining and the tit for tat and the opposing each other, that's all. It stops at the Mab and Titania level. Everything Gates related or above is they don't do that shit. Even the soldiers. So I think they sort of they put that aside for considering their job.
Yeah, like the English and the French in World War II, So.
Although Winter does say he is not your weapon, like because he's delineated to Winter, she says it's mine, hands off.
Well, yeah, I mean it's they have the argument as to whether or not he's ready, but it's not really that seems more like a philosophical argument than an actual you have to do something for me in order for me to take him to show you what I don't want to necessarily show him.
Mm-hmm.
Besides, what else is Mother Summer going to do? She's just going to have to sweep if she stays there, so she might as well go for a walk.
Yeah. It's interesting that she warns him almost in the same wording that Leah does of once he learns this, you may never know a night's peace again. That's what Leah said that Margaret suffered for the cost of her knowledge, is that she was never able to sleep soundly again.
Yep.
Right.
But Harry's got a thick head, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't think they've made as big a deal about it because Harry often makes references about having, continuous nightmares and stuff like that. Like previous books, he's be like, yeah, I had the nightmare with the tentacles again. Be like, when did you deal with tentacles?
Well, that's the thing. He seems to not care as much. Like he has them and he just kind of is like, it happens out of hand. He has them and that's it.
Well, so. It's also his perspective, I mean, I don't know. On the one hand, he's very clear about telling you when he's been vulnerable, right? There are definitely moments where he's like, they got me, like this. I want to tell you that I was brave and I withstood the monsters and whatever, but they got me this time. Versus like, yeah, like he also just kind of like skips over the fact that he's probably clearly got PTSD. And the only difference is we haven't seen him just like shut down when the shit hits the fan, because that's one of his superpowers, is that when it goes crazy, he steps up.
You could also make the argument, depending on whether or not how his id functions compared to other wizards and the things that he's had living in his head, that he's always had a form of insulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so, I mean he's had Lash, he's had his id, he's had his daughter. There's other things that while they're impacting him physically, he also is not necessarily under the same mental anguish that someone like his mother, who may not have had those, for lack of a better term, circuit breakers in there.
Although, you make Harry suffer, that's one of the principles of the series. So those guys will show up again to help him hold the line, but there'll probably be some kind of anguish or some kind of.
Well, he's always going to have anguish, but if we're just talking about how they're like, his mother never knew a night's peace, and he's been warned about that twice, and it's never really been an issue. It's because I think he just focuses on the other issues that Harry has. Dreaming is not necessarily a big one.
Right. His mother was probably more sensitive. She was more finesse than he is. I always thought that if Harry had if you reduced all the other attributes, all other things being equal, Harry's the most stubborn character probably in that world. Like he's more stubborn than Ebenezer. He's more stubborn than anybody. So like his superpower is his will, right? And that's part of it. May be sourced from him being a Starborn in some cases, but he, obviously Lash helped him out in the Deeps. But with that one exception, he's always been able to resist mind magic and other things that other people haven't. Like it was part of him, like him just not even getting suckered into Peabody's things. But there were a couple other things where they're like, wait, that didn't work on you. And where it clearly had worked on other wizards and other people. And, we still don't know, and the senior council may not know how much they got bent through Peabody's thing, his ink magic and all that nonsense. But definitely with like Sharkface, right? Like if anybody had gone toe to toe with an outsider like he did there, Like that's usually not how it's going to work out for anybody else, but that may be where the Starborn kind of puts him over the edge. So, but it's just like his mental bastion, right? Like he just cannot be beaten, theoretically. So, but anyway.
Yeah. We managed to get through 5 whole chapters in an hour.
Yay.
Hey, I managed to be right when I was being sarcastic. Right?
Yeah.
This has been the Dresden Files podcast, brought to you by the Broken Jars Network. We got a lot of other podcasts you should check them out.
Yeah. We can start next time at the beginning of chapter 3 and then go into all of the gates and Rashid and more fun.
Chapter 3, I hope not. We're going back.
30.
Sorry.
Yeah. We managed to get through the 30s. I just kind of dropped the 10s after that.
Oh yeah, so
you have to
high fantasy. There's a DMs Anonymous, Sim Talk.
Yep.
He's forgotten them all.
No. There's the one about the
High
Office.
Fantasy, who is
Great Scott.
Hiatus. Yes, thank you. Great Scott, and Great Scott's closing up the show sometime the next year or so.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a year.
Imminent. It's gonna happen any year now.
And a year now.
For an upcoming show as well, a book club to be named.
Hey, book club to be named. So that actually, I think we should just go with that. Book club to be named will be the name of the podcast, perhaps. What did you cover on DMs Anonymous, Andreas?
Oh, it's been a while. The same as last time. We haven't done
I see.
A new episode.
But if you do like, RPGs, maybe you should check out the Dresden Files RPG or Dresden Files Accelerated.
Yeah, you can get it through
on DriveThru RPG.
Yeah,
perhaps?
exactly.
Oh wow! And maybe click the affiliate link down below. I hope this is the direction of down below. And help support the podcast. We haven't asked for this in previous years, but with Google Hangouts, dying, we have to find another platform, and this is what we have to start paying for. So thanks a bunch for, anyway, that's all I got.
Okay.
Jacob,
Give us your money.
take us out.